Yeah, and let's not forget that the official spokesman for Hamas, about 2 weeks after October the 7th, on camera, said that their intention was to do the same thing again and again and again, which I think is something that people often forget about in the mix of all this, which is Hamas is wedded to annihilating Israel. And that's, I think, a very important cog in this.
Yeah, but let's keep in mind who's
guys,
actually being annihilated.
Well, I think, listen, there's no question that the scale of the retribution, one of the questions I asked repeatedly, as you know, Dave, throughout the months after October 7th was what is proportionate? I don't know the answer. I do know from relatives of mine who fought wars that once a war starts, it's very, very difficult to control it. And it tends to be something that evolves in the way that it evolves, and history will show that a lot of innocent people get killed in every war that's ever been conducted. But what is happening in Gaza right now, I've never understood quite what Israel's end game is. I totally understand they want to have the hostages released, and they should be. But what happens after you have flattened Gaza? Short of what Trump is advocating of 2 million people migrating to neighboring Arab countries, which is a form of ethnic cleansing.
As I'm sure you know, the way in which Hamas built up the structure of the Gaza throughout the 18 years that they had was precisely to flout and use every law of war against the Israelis. Every army in a conflict has certain rules of war that you're meant to abide by. One of the most obvious is that you are identified as being a combatant, not as a civilian. Okay? Another is you don't put weapons in civilian houses and civilian buildings. You do not fire from houses of worship, rockets. You do not launch attacks from hospitals. You do not keep detention facilities where you can torture and disappear people inside hospitals and other medical facilities. All of these laws of war are the laws that Hamas breaks every minute of every day by their actions. So if you want to get the hostages back, and if you want to destroy Hamas, when you're fighting against a force which does not only not follow the rules of war, but uses your following of the rules of the laws of war against you, at least concede this is a highly specific and complex military operation. And if you have, or anyone else has, and I say this genuinely, a better way to get back the hostages and to destroy Hamas, I at any rate am all ears.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's a lot there. So number one, like I do
stop that. But look, your problem and Bill Burr's problem with this is that because Hamas use babies as human shields, that means you have to do something else. Fine. Let me throw it back at you. What would you do? What would you have done to get the hostages back and to kill the leadership of Hamas? And let me just quickly, whilst you're thinking about that, let me just add one other thing in. I know that people don't want to talk about proportions on this, but let's do it. Again, if this was by proportion of population America, this would have been 44,000 Americans killed in one day and 10,000 Americans taken hostage. Tell me what you would have allowed to be done if this was Hamas that had done this, 10,000 American hostages held, 44,000 dead Americans. How would you get those hostages back knowing that you were fighting against an army of terrorists that wanted you to kill as many of their civilians as possible?
If the toll in Gaza were replicated in America, it would be 30 million people killed. That's a big number.
You're extrapolating that out again from the